Charlas de la noche. Palabras con imagen. El análisis de los acontecimientos que influyen en nuestra vida con el periodista Francisco Durán Rosillo.
Durán Rosillo te saluda y los saluda a todos ustedes, su amiga María Celeste Raraz, para invitarlos a que se suscriban a mi canal de YouTube, María Celeste Raraz, tal como mi nombre, donde les informo todas las semanas sobre entrevistas que tienen un tema que ayuda a mejorarnos como personas y de paso son interesantes. Las pueden encontrar en mi canal de YouTube, así que los espero. Y se suscriben gratis.
Well, we have a very special guest tonight, and the Spanish version of this interview, as you've seen, is going to be subtitled because we don't like to miss a word of this prominent Georgian citizen who now is candidate to become the House of the Representatives of Georgia by the District 51, Mr. Peter Korman. He is a professional that studied in Georgia Tech. He was one of the pioneers on CNN, and he have a lot of experience on the professional field. He never participates on politics, and I have the honor of know him, the most honest person I met in my life. Mr. Korman, you have your house fully paid, you have a wonderful family, you have everything every human being deserves on life, but why you decide at this point of your life to become a candidate?
Hola, Francisco. Thank you for having me on today and asking me this question. This is not a personal ambition, Francisco. This is for all of us. Not just for me, for all of my neighbors, for all of those who live in Johns Creek and Roswell and Sandy Springs in our cities and in Georgia. This is about the safety of our families, the protection of our economy and our economic environment, and especially, and this is foundational, what we are teaching our children in schools. So these are the things we want to protect. In Georgia, a great economy and a great economic model. In our cities, we want to make sure that our families, and we feel our families are safe going to the store and being outside their home. And in our schools, we want to make sure that administrators are focusing on student achievement and not indoctrinating our students.
Great answer, Mr. Korman. And one of the most important things, you say Georgia has a great economy. I live part of that and I enjoy it. I have 32 years living in Georgia, and I met you as a regular citizen with your wonderful family, and something I see on you is that you have a very nice and polite manners for every single citizen. In the park, I will never forget how you helped a lady with her little girl who was learning to ride her bicycle, and you were helping them, and that is very nice, and you are nice Jew, your roots are Jew, but your heart is very American. Something that you told me one day that you really concerned is to learn and recover the law and order policies. What do you think to do in regard if you win, and I am almost sure I see a lot of support. I have a lot of friends that are going to vote for you, including myself.
Thank you, Francisco.
So, what do you think to do to recover the law and order environment?
It starts with education. It starts with tolerance. It starts with respect. And we need to start teaching each other that civility and respect are most important. And this is the way we interact with each other. This is the way we treat each other. It doesn't matter what the background, it doesn't matter how much money you have. It matters that we treat each other as we would want to be treated. And it starts with us. And it starts with what we're willing to tolerate. And if we treat each other well, and we understand the boundaries and the limits, that's great. For those who have trouble understanding that civility and respect for other people and for other people's property and for other people's families, those people need to be addressed. And that's why we have law enforcement officers. That's why we have courts. We need to teach people to stay within the lanes and to have guardrails of proper and appropriate behavior. And this is how we can all exist in society together. When that respect disintegrates, when that civility disintegrates, and that didn't start with us, Francisco, that started with our entertainment culture. That started truly where our media had disrespect for its audience. And it educated its audience with the wrong lessons. And I saw it start to degrade in the 1990s as my girls were growing up. I found it objectionable in my own home. I taught my girls to be civil and to show respect for other people and to expect that other people would treat them in the same manner. And I think it starts with us. It starts with what we are willing to tolerate. And I think we've gotten to the point where we are not willing to see criminals running wild in our streets. I don't think we're willing to tolerate the feeling of a threat that when we send our wives or kids to the store or to fill up the car with gas, that it could be a dangerous situation. So that's where it's important that we have law enforcement officers, and our law enforcement officers are properly trained, as we've done in the cities in North Fulton, that they understand the difference between mental illness and addiction, and they can make the distinction between that and predatory behavior. But I really think it starts with us, and I think it starts with what we demand of our press and our media. Our media cannot be encouraging people to be disrespectful and uncivil, and they do this every day. And I think we truly need to address that, and I think it again starts with us as an audience. We need to reject incivility. We need to reject the loudest voices on the left and the right that are promoting fights for the rest of us. They are fight promoters. We don't need to participate.
Wise and smart answer, Mr. Korman, and I agree with you because you work for Turner Broadcasting System as well I did. In our times, I started there in the 1980s, probably you been in the beginning, the early 1980s, but if you remember, we need a bachelor degree in mass media or computer science. They make us a test and psychological test, etc., to work or become part of that huge team that Ted Turner integrate. And now I agree with you because I see some television shows that they put people that has no idea about the respect for others, and in sometimes they say things that I don't agree, but I'm not going to waste your wonderful time because I know you have other campaign events later. Your district, Mr. Korman, is becoming populated by a lot of migrants, a lot of international people, especially from Latin America. We are receiving a lot of Venezuelans, and some of them do not understand English. Some of them come to begin a new life. Is any way you are going to enhance laws, because unfortunately, and that this is public, behind that migrants are also people from Mexico, from the drug cartels, and I am not telling that. It's being said by the DA director in Atlanta, Robert Ransom. So you are planning under that law and order, follow that war against fentanyls and enhance the laws?
That's correct. So we have to make a distinction. The Hispanic community is not a community. It is hundreds of different communities. I'm not going to pick on Venezuelans or folks from Mexico. People come from 55 different areas in Mexico. They have a different cultural expectations. The one thing that binds us here is the English language, so we need to learn that. The schools are making adjustments for that. We have to make a distinction between people who come here legally and people who immigrate without those permissions. So the people who have migrated without those permissions, we need to find a better way to incorporate them in our society and control this. So we bring in law-abiding citizens and people who cross the border with a respect for our laws and not cross the border and immediately become outlaws or illegal. This is very important. As for the cartel activity, illegal immigration enriches the cartels. It enriches organized crime. It encourages human trafficking. It encourages drug trafficking. It kills Americans, but not only that, it kills hundreds, if not thousands, of these migrants who are coming in under the watchful eye of these cartels, giving them money, and then they're left to bake in closed trucks. They're left in the desert. They drown in the Rio Grande. But this is only a part of illegal immigration. And the fact that we have an open and uncontrolled border has been a disaster for families across the United States, and especially in Atlanta, which is a major distribution point for both human trafficking and drug trafficking. So at the state level, we've been very, very strong on human trafficking. We're getting better at the drug trafficking. This is a federal issue, but when the federal government has become chaotic and lawless and refuses to enforce our laws and enforce our territorial sovereignty, and it's opened it up to enriching the worst elements who do not respect us, who do not respect our laws, who do not respect our children or our families. The strongest bulwark and fortress against that is a strong state government with strong law enforcement here. And that's what we need to discourage.
I agree with you, Mr. Korman, because not too long ago, months ago, Alejandro Mayorkas released from immigration jails in the border all the migrants and sent in buses nationwide without any trace, without any fingerprints, without any background checks. And I consider, I am migrant, but I consider that uncontrolled and unidentified migration is a huge risk for America, especially right now that the next door is becoming a Cuban branch. Mexico is becoming a narco state. Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador is the Mexican president that delayed 34 visas for the DEA agents, is the Mexican president that closed the hangar where the DEA have couple small planes to do a surveillance flights, is the Mexican president that closed and cancel all the information exchange with the Department of Justice to prosecute in both sides of the border criminals and drug cartels. And I believe that you are enhancing very well what America needs.
Well, if I can interrupt for a second, the communities here that it most affects, the neighborhoods that it most affects, where these migrants, especially lawless migrants, come, they come to live amongst those that they are most familiar. So they will settle in neighborhoods where more Hispanics live. Most of these migrants come here looking for more economic activity. The ones who are criminals plague first those local neighborhoods. They are gangsters, they recruit children, they are the worst elements. The people who get hurt worst and harmed worst and first are our Hispanic neighbors at the lowest socioeconomic rung. The people who are living in those communities now, legally and working hard, get hurt by allowing criminals to run in their midst. Those are the people that get hurt first and worst. And that needs to be stopped to protect American citizens and to protect migrants who come here who just want economic opportunity.
Of course, I agree with you. And Georgia is again representing the nationwide election field for this tide rise in regard of the senatorial position. I'm not going to say the details because all America knows what happens with candidates, and also in the government for the state of Georgia is very tight because one more time the incumbent Mr.
Governor Kemp?
Mr. Governor Kemp tried to stay on the position, and again the Democrat candidate Ms. Abrams is racing. I don't have the crystal ball to say who is winning, but in the case anyone wins, how do you think to contribute from the Senate position, enhancing the laws? You are becoming a lawmaker, and lawmakers are always the surveillance checkers of the governors. Whoever is state on the Georgia Capitol, what are you planning to do?
Well, that's correct. In the case, I believe Governor Kemp is going to win by a large margin. Governor Kemp is a man that I can work with. Governor Kemp is a man that is not governing for Republicans. He's not governing for Democrats. He's governing for all Georgians. And he's proven that to all Georgians. In the event that Stacey Abrams would become governor, We are going to need more legislators who have my approach. My approach is not to create adversaries. I discuss issues. I look at issues with a pragmatic and practical manner. I don't make adversaries out of people who disagree with me, as you know, Francisco. We can't yell at each other. We can't demonize each other. We can't turn each other into villains and try to cast each other as villains. I will not scream and make personal attacks against those I work with in the legislature or the governor. I will make reasoned arguments for the reason we should have particular guidelines in place. That's what our laws are. I would like to see fewer laws. And if we have a more civil society, we can have fewer laws when people know to respect each other. Again, and it goes down to civility and respect. I come from a business background where we build agreement. We build agreement by making reasoned arguments. We have good information. We pass on, we use accurate information. We don't lie to each other because we have to work with each other the next day. My opponent she's a criminal defense attorney who, as her professional experience, she goes into the courtroom every day and creates adversaries. She doesn't have a guardrail on facts or the truth. Her job is to win no matter what. In business, that doesn't work because all it does is creates enemies that you can't work with for the following day. So would I work with Governor Abrams? Absolutely. And if she is inaccurate in her speech, as she has been every day of this campaign and every day since 2018, I would take the opportunity to give her correct information and give her factual information. And in light of that, I would give my constituents correct and accurate information because that's my number one priority. I believe people are bright, and if they have accurate information, they're going to make good decisions for themselves. But when they're misinformed, when they're lied to, and they believe these lies, then they're going to make bad decisions. And those decisions don't hurt Ms. Abrams, they don't hurt Governor Kemp. It hurts them, and it hurts their neighbors, and it hurts the rest of us. It's not red team versus blue team in the legislature. It can't work that way. We need to work for the 95% of us in the middle, and it's us. We need to work for all of us and stop paying tribute to the people who are promoting fights between us. That's how I see it.
I completely agree. And just to conclude this wonderful interview, Mr. Korman, because you have a clear and assertive visualization of what's going on in America. Months ago, in my broadcast, I interviewed a person from Nicaragua who denounced the opening of a training center. You are going to see on the published edition of this broadcast the images of this building that Vladimir Putin built in Nicaragua to train snipers, terrorists, and people who is coming on the caravans from Nicaragua, El Salvador, Honduras, cross Mexico, and they come to USA. Governor of Texas already denounced that he is using the National Guard to enhance immigration because it's becoming a headache on the border lines. Governor Greg Abbott fined in those immigrants 2 Iranian terrorists that come to kill President George W. Bush. And nobody is doing anything. Nobody is moving a finger. And as you are going to see on the video after this interview, unfortunately, having the front yard Mexico, as President Biden called, Cinco de Mayo celebration in the Rose Garden of the White House. He invites the wife of the Mexican president, and he declares that Mexico is not anymore the USA backyard. Mexico is the front yard of USA. Yes, but he's not taking care. Russia is building a guns factory in Mexico. Vladimir Putin recently signed an agreement with the Mexican president to use the Mexican space to operate Russian intelligence satellites and do a huge agreement for chemical weapons, nuclear heads, and America is not reacting.
Well, America's reacting. I believe America is reacting. I believe Americans are reacting. I believe that the current administration in Washington is lawless. They are chaotic. They are not protecting Americans, but I believe that Americans are waking up to this, and we're about to find out in November how alert they have become. The southern border is a national security emergency. Our southern border is a national security problem. Most Americans, I believe, are aware of this, and I am speaking to thousands of people individually who believe we are on the wrong track in our federal policies. And the way they deal with that is they vote for a different group of people to come in and provide a check and a balance to a lawless administration. We know that the administration is not upholding their constitutional responsibilities. And Americans have to react. And I believe the majority of them will. And I think we're about to see that.
Thank you, Mr. Korman. Is anything else you want to add? Here we don't censorship any interview.
I am grateful to you. I am grateful to your audience. Francisco, I hope that the two of us have long and happy lives and that we share more time together. And thank you for the opportunity to address you and everybody who's listening. Thank you.
And dear Americans in my audience, Mr. Korman has a building mentality. As he says, he is not running for this position to make enemies. He is creating bridges, strong bridges that benefit any American citizen in the good way, and stop criminals on time before they poison a huge amount of the young adults in this wonderful country. Lord bless America, Lord bless you, Pete, and your wonderful family, and Lord bless our audience. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. God bless all of us. Thank you, Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Korman. Has a great evening.
Thank you, sir.
En un tiempo corto
В кратчайший срок
se abordaron todos los temas.
Cargo estamos aquí para ver las posibilidades de ampliar los ámbitos de cooperación, estrechar los lazos de cooperación entre nuestros pueblos.
Durán Rosillo te saluda y los saluda a todos ustedes, su amiga María Celeste Raraz, para invitarlos a que se suscriban a mi canal de YouTube, María Celeste Raraz, tal como mi nombre, donde les informo todas las semanas sobre entrevistas que tienen un tema que ayuda a mejorarnos como personas y de paso son interesantes. Las pueden encontrar en mi canal de YouTube, así que los espero. Y se suscriben gratis.
Escuchaste el análisis de la noticia, transparente como el agua, con el periodista Francisco Durán Rosillo.